Hi everyone. So I recently got into watching a bunch of different r/nice guys videos, and even though obviously it's entertaining, it's hilarious, it's cringe-worthy, I started noticing a lot of parallels with a friendship that I've had for a very long time. And I started asking myself the question, am I a nice guy? Now, obviously, to be fair to everyone involved, I'm not going to be using any names or specific locations or anything like that. And I guess the whole point of me making this video is I just want to put it out there that after my experience and getting into a lot of these like nice guy stories and like listening to the details and stuff, I guess I just want to open it up to you guys. Like, what do you think from my story? And honestly, since my channel is all about the healing process and dealing with trauma, I think a certain level of introspection is necessary for that growth. So not just me pondering over these things, but also to share them with you. So essentially, last year, me and a friend of mine that we've mostly just been pen pals for 12 years, but to make things a little bit more complicated, there was always a like a forbidden fruit kind of like air of romance behind the way that we would talk, and she was always in a relationship, and it was the same relationship. So already right off the bat, the way that I'm framing it, it sounds like a typical nice guy story. Guy is friends with girl that's in a relationship and is either waiting it out or courting or, you know, whatever, you know, pretending to be a friend. But to open up a little bit more with some of the details, me and this person met in college at an art class. And essentially, you know, I didn't know what her situation was, but we both decided to, after like connecting after a couple classes together, to just go get coffee somewhere. And I had never been to a Starbucks at this point, and she was like, oh, you gotta try this place. And I think back then it was less of a meme. Now it's an obvious meme, Starbucks. But like, we decided to, you know, just get coffee and talk, and all of our conversations were just really cool. You know, like, here's someone I could connect with on a spiritual level, musically, artistically. And so even though she wasn't telling me what her situation was, and I was a little bit too nervous to really ask her, I was kind of just enjoying whatever was happening, whatever was unfolding, you know. Clearly, I was attracted to this person, but I didn't want to open up about that because I guess I was just too shy or too nervous. But eventually, when we became friends on, I think it was Facebook, I saw that she was in a relationship, so I was like, oh, damn, you know. So that kind of shot things down for me as far as like, maybe this could be something more. But, you know, since things didn't get to that point where like we're like flirting or being like romantic or doing anything that's like like too much, like crossing a line, I figured, you know what, like, even though she's in a relationship, I still value this person and I value the connection. So I'm not gonna let that like prevent us from at least being friends, as long as we could you know, just be open about stuff. And we, you know, it took us a few years, but like to wrap this thing up, this 4 or 5 months of just hanging out after class. And one time we were hanging out on my birthday, which was kind of cool. We went to like my old art school and I showed her around, and we went down to the bay, and we were kind of like, you know, she's into photography, so she's taking pictures, and like we're singing in my car. So there's a lot of like things that are like really sweet that could be considered romantic. And obviously, like, because I liked this person, it felt romantic to me, but like I never like wanted to cross that line, or never felt comfortable crossing a line, like saying anything out of pocket or making any kind of move. You know, to me, we were still just friends, regardless of how I felt about her. But clearly, her boyfriend was uncomfortable with, you know, us talking as often as we were and spending time. So after a few months, she opened up about that and said that I don't think we could talk anymore. And I was like, okay, you know, obviously it sucks, but totally understandable. I'm not trying to ruin anyone's situation. I'm not a homewrecker, so I don't feel comfortable whether we're friends or whatever. You know, I'm not... I think what makes things a little bit complicated is that even though, you know, we had our break then, and I was like, okay, you know, it is what it is. Just a few months after that, she felt like messaging me, because like we did have an actual friendship. Like it wasn't just like I'm just sending her message after message hoping for a reply, or like anything that's like to the extreme of the nice guys subreddits. But since we had like an actual friendship, she felt like apologizing for how things kind of ended, and I appreciated that. But like at the same time, you know, like I also understood, you know, like if the person that you're with is uncomfortable, then like, you know, it's not really my place to say like, you know, you shouldn't listen to that, obviously. Like, because like, how does that make you feel too, right? Like, she obviously felt bad that things ended the way that they ended for our friendship, but like at the same time we both understood, or you know, and I felt like expressing that I understood that, you know, it's just, it is what it is. You know. And I guess what, like, even that sort of sounds like nice guy-ish, like, to me, after getting into a lot of the stories, like, very mild, nice guy energy. And even the way that, like, I'm sort of talking about it. But I think that what makes the situation more complicated for both of us is that we, starting in like 2015 or 16, so like just a few years after that happened, would start like we still were like friends online, and even though we weren't like talking, there would still be like interacting with certain things, liking certain things, and also wishing each other happy birthday, which, you know, like, I always appreciated it, because like it wasn't just like a simple happy birthday. It was always like a very like heartfelt, like, I hope you have a wonderful day, and you know, your mother would, like, because I lost my mom when I was younger, your mother would be so proud, and all this stuff, and you know, just like really sweet stuff. And I wrote a song when we hung out on my birthday, right before we stopped talking. And I was like, hey, you know, like, I know we're not talking anymore and stuff like that, but like, I really felt like sharing the song with you because, I wrote this song back in the day, and, I just recorded it with my band, and I feel like maybe you'd really like it. And I don't know what drove me to break the silence that way, even though like we sort of pseudo were already with like the birthday stuff, but I just felt like sharing that song. Like maybe it was like some weird form of closure for me, like, hey, whatever. And I didn't expect her to respond, or if she did respond, because of how I was because I was already sort of being introspective with all of this. Like I already felt like I'd either not get a response, or maybe she would be upset, and and this is like in hindsight how I felt like almost immediately afterwards. I was like, maybe I shouldn't have sent that. But she was actually really happy to hear from me, and was almost like thank you so much for like reaching out to me. It's it's great hearing from you. I've been thinking of you and all this stuff, and I don't know, it's just like really nice stuff, and like listening to the song, and it didn't like reignite any kind of pen palship or whatever, but from then on, like she followed me on Instagram, and so we were like now connected in that way. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, I don't feel comfortable commenting on her stuff, or like sending her like messages and memes or any of that stuff, because like how we left off. But like she's happy to hear from me, and I don't know, like, and she's following me now, so like maybe, I don't know, I didn't really know how to take it, other than that's just what happened. So all right, the song that I sent her was met with positivity. Like that's kind of cool. But in 2017, so just a year later, I don't know what really inspired this, but we just started talking, and because of the nature of where we're at and her situation and everything like that, it felt like, okay, this conversation is happening right now for a reason. And the way that I interpreted that reason was to bring things to an actual proper conclusion, like closure. And so I think that the best thing for me to do in this situation was to be honest with her, that like, even though we were only friends, and that's like that, I always respected her space and stuff like that, that like I also had feelings for her based on like the connection that we had, and all that stuff, and that I don't know, like it's just very awkward, and it's awkward to talk about. But she reciprocated that and was like, no, I've also had feelings for you too. And that because she had met the person that she was dating a couple months before we met, and she was like, if it wasn't for the timing, then we definitely would be dating. And it felt like relieving to hear that like I wasn't just this obsessive, crazy, weird, creepy guy that like had an actual connection with this person and was actually friends with this person, but also had like secret feelings for this person, and it was all one-sided. Like, so to hear that, even though, she's with her partner and loves her partner, that she also had feelings for me too. And so it makes a lot more sense for me as well, that why like we stopped talking. It wasn't just because her partner was uncomfortable, it was also because like, well, this connection is also creating friction for her. And so like it totally makes sense why like she'd have to be like, well, I don't, if I keep, even though this is just a friendship, if I keep indulging this, then this is going to just complicate things for the both of us. At least it's how I took it anyway. But it also felt validating to know that I wasn't the only one in feeling that way. Like I wasn't crazy for feeling like we had some kind of special connection. And I even let her take the lead on kind of just like describing the connection, like, because like we both come from like spiritual backgrounds, so like she kind of got really metaphysical with it and was like, you know, it's like this deep connection. And you know, years later, I get into Dolores Cannon's work, which, you know, she's done a lot of like soulmate twin flame connection stuff. And I was unaware of all of that stuff, but the way that she was describing the connection that we had really lines up with a lot of that. And so, I don't know, like it was validating and it felt like closure. But at the same time, it was also, I think it was tough for both of us. Like, a lot of our posts, even though we didn't continue talking after that, like we started like quoting like our like the shared favorite artist that way, because we had one of those too. This is why, like, so like we had like a very weird connection, because it wasn't just like, oh, we're friends and we like all this stuff together. There was like a really intense like we share this artist together, or we share this thing or whatever, you know, like these movies, this, that, or whatever. And it just like started coming out in some of the things that we'd post, like to stories, or like in her photography, quotes that she'd use for certain artists, from certain artists that we listened to specifically. And so it was mutual, but also completely understandable that this person's in another is in a relationship, and we're not going to go there. And even though this is where I started to feel more like a nice guy, I guess, like when it comes to like the r/nice guy stuff, I did reach out to her with that song, right? You know, and we were doing the birthday thing, and even though like it wasn't a prolonged conversation, it was just like a few messages, like I was still partaking in that. And that continued, even though for a couple years, like it was sort of like not happening. It back in like 2021, it started up again, and there'd be like more random bold messages here and there. And by bold, I mean we would just randomly send each other messages. But, you know, I'm definitely guilty of initiating a lot of these messages. And, you know, maybe that's why I have to ask this question. Like, was I a nice guy? That even though this person's in a relationship, and even though, like, I've accepted twice now, in 2013 and in 2017, that we can't be friends anymore because it makes her partner uncomfortable. And that also, by putting 2 and 2 together, that it probably also makes things complicated for her, because now she's also told me that she's had feelings for me. That even with that information, that I'm still messaging this person, I'm still following this person, you know, like I might not be like aggressively courting her or stalking her, but there's still this like ickiness to it. Like it didn't feel icky while I was doing it. But in hindsight now, especially after listening to a lot of like nice guy stuff, like it's kind of hard to not feel like, you know, messaging someone else that's in a relationship, that even though she's reciprocating and she'll send me messages every now and then, that like on my part doing that at all, just not right, you know, like we can't, like we stopped being friends because of the situation. And I don't know, it's just snowballed a little bit into 2023, where there'd be more messages and more conversations. Obviously, I initiated most of them. So like, I think the most nice guy part of this entire story is definitely me reaching out to her, like at all. So I completely understand that, especially now. But 2023 was interesting because there was a lot more of back and forth. So it wasn't just like a simple comment or, you know, quick couple messages. There was, it felt like how it was when we first started talking. And it made a lot more sense later on when she said she was in at a fork in the road of, like, in her own personal life. And we were talking about our business at the time, so I was assuming that, like, it probably most likely had to do with that. She was also engaged, so, like, I could see it doing with that as well. But because we never really talked about her relationship, or she never really brought it up unless I brought up the relationship, you know, like in my conversation with her in 2017, you know, because she never once mentioned that she was with someone, or that, you know, like anything with that. I felt the need to, in that conversation specifically, like she did in 2023, that like, oh, we can't talk because of my relationship. So it was kind of just like me reiterating that, essentially. But the way that we were talking, it wasn't really about that. It was kind of just like about like just stuff to do with us, like ourselves. And so I figured that, you know, it could be just business stuff or whatever. But like, cause I do music, whatever, and so I'm always thinking about that, right? So, and we all second guess ourselves in a lot of different ways. But I think that for me, it was really, it really took me back a few steps when, you know, I gave her some advice or whatever. I was like, if you're overthinking things, obviously it's all in your head, because that's what I do all the time. But like, if it's something that you feel in your heart, you should listen to that. But it really took me back a few steps when she decided to message me a month later, with this specific information. By the way, I'm breaking up with so-and-so. And she didn't say it's because, she said it was because of our conversation, but she didn't say that she was like leaving him for me. She didn't like, so she wasn't like leading me on to believe that like, oh, because we're talking again like this and she's leaving this relationship, that now we're going to be together. But because of the connection that we had, it was hard for me to not feel like, oh, well, the whole reason why we stopped being friends or we couldn't be close anymore was because of this relationship. And yet in 2017, she said that if we had met earlier, we'd probably be dating. But realistically, coming out of a relationship after a decade, like, you're not going to just jump right into another one, right? Like, she even said herself, like, I'm going to spend some time with myself. And that's what we all should be doing coming out of a relationship, especially one that's been that long. But, like, I felt like at the very least that, you know, given the way that we've been talking and the history and everything like that, that we'd be friends again. Maybe we would even see each other again down the road, you know, like get coffee like we used to and stuff like that. And also, like, leading up to this, before even dropping that message, like, she said more than a few times throughout the year that she'd try to, like, come to a show or to let her know when I'll be in town and stuff like that. So, like, that kind of also gave me this, like, feeling that we can definitely be in each other's space. Like, it's been, like, a long time, and I'm not gonna ask this person, like, hey, let's get together, but, like, to be in each other's spaces, like, in public events and stuff like that, that's not, like, a bad, like, if she's saying that she wants to come to a show, that to me means that she's okay with seeing me again, even though it's been a long time and there's probably some awkward energy there. So that's how I took that. So I decided to go to this, like, poetry event at this place where she goes sometimes, because I do a lot of different open mics and events and stuff like that, and this was something that I just recently learned about, so I was like, oh, well, this is something I'd like to try. I don't know if she's gonna be there or not. I even spoke to my therapist about it because I was worried. Like, I was like, still, like, I don't want to cross any boundaries, even though I feel like a lot of things that I've talked about with you guys is sounding like I've already crossed boundaries, you know, by messaging her and stuff like that. And maybe that's why I also felt like when I did that, I would be met with silence, or like, we're not supposed to be talking, instead of being met with the opposite. Which still doesn't make it okay, but I guess made me feel like it wasn't as bad as it probably was. Because once I went to this thing, even though she wasn't there, she found out that I was there, and that became a problem. So in April of last year, we had a big falling out because she basically, like, it made me feel like, now in hindsight, I was a nice guy, because yeah, this person had feelings, yeah, this person was talking to me, yeah, it was almost everything was reciprocated except for, like, spending physical time and stuff like that. But essentially, she was upset that I went to this thing because she thought, or at least she said she thought, that I was trying to get into her life, or using people that she, in spaces that she knows as a conduit to get into her life. And that's exactly what I was, like, trying to avoid, you know. If she hadn't told, if she was like, yeah, I'd like to come to a show, but I don't feel ready, or I don't feel comfortable, then I definitely never, ever would put myself in a situation like that where I could possibly run into her, because I'm not trying to make other people feel uncomfortable, because I am socially awkward and I feel uncomfortable and I hate feeling uncomfortable. So I wouldn't want to put other people through that. But here is someone that I really cared about telling me that's exactly what I did. And obviously, like, she has every right to, like, not want to talk to me, or, you know, if that's how she felt, then it's obviously valid because it's how she felt. it definitely put me off, because just a few months earlier, she was saying, like, I feel like I've always known you, like even back then when we first met, I felt like I always known you, like a past life or something like that. To now telling me what she thinks my intentions are, and then also capping it off with, I don't wish to continue this conversation. Like, I don't want to hear your side of things at all. So to go from that to, like, whoa, am I a creep? Like, we were just telling each other how seen we feel by each other, and like all this like pseudo romantic talk, and like, in hindsight, maybe this is just me coming to my own conclusions, but like, I do like to get feedback from other people, and I think that it's a very important part of the healing journey to be introspective. But like, maybe this whole thing was wrong from the start. Maybe if we can be friends with people that are in relationships already, we should. But if we can't, we shouldn't. And even if we feel like I felt like I can, regardless of how I feel, I'm okay with just being friends, she's the one who cut it off in the beginning. And so it was wrong of me to break the silence at any point. Like, whenever someone, like, because I have some friends that, like, I've had falling outs with before, and like, when someone tells you, like, they've told me that they don't want to talk to you anymore, or they can't talk anymore, the ball is firmly in their court, and it's wrong. And this is just my opinion, where I'm coming to now, my conclusion. It's wrong of you to break the silence. They need to be the ones to do it. So regardless of everything that's been said, it makes sense why she would feel this way. I definitely felt very confused, because the way that we were talking, not just recently, but like for 12 years on and off, the way that we were talking is that, like, she never like had this like negative assumption about me, and she never felt creeped out by me, or never thought that I was like this nice guy character, and always reciprocated everything. And I never tried crossing any boundaries. And even after we both came clean in 2017 about how we felt about each other, there was still this like this cordial friendliness, and even though like it started dipping back into what it once was in 2023, there was still like I'm not trying to, hey, let's get together, hey, like, so maybe it wasn't that extreme. I mean, it was extreme for the length of what was going on, but it was never extreme to where like I was making this person uncomfortable, and they were telling me that they were uncomfortable, and I felt like I was making them uncomfortable. I think the most uncomfortable thing that I was doing, or that I've ever done with this person, was going to this space. And that's because she told me. Obviously, I could come to the conclusion that reaching out to her could have made her feel uncomfortable, even though she told me the opposite, but, and like was reciprocating and all this stuff. But regardless of whether or not the messages were making her feel uncomfortable, that's entirely on me, and I'm in the wrong for that. It doesn't matter, and I think this is another conclusion that I'm coming to as well, is that it doesn't matter what kind of connection that you used to have with someone, because holding on to that, especially when you're not like actively in this person's life. We're not really, and this goes for both of us too, because it was reciprocated, right? But like, we're holding on to a memory. It's not necessarily correct. Like, I mean, she debunked herself by saying prior that, like, I felt like I've always known you, and now just a few months later saying, you know, like, I feel like you're using like my space and people to get into my life. So with that, she was wrong, or she came to the conclusion that she was wrong about me, which made me come to the conclusion that I was wrong about the whole thing, and that us talking the way they were talking, us being honest about how we felt, that all of it was wrong. All of it was not okay. You know, and I think that it's tough when you think you have a real friendship or a real connection with someone, like, that it's not one of those weird situations. But maybe that's how a lot of nice guys feel. Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of them that are self-aware enough to actually self-sabotage right out the gate. But like, maybe there's a lot of people that don't realize like what they're doing. Like, and it's just so obvious to the rest of us. Like, maybe the story that I'm sharing right now is so obvious to the rest of you. But it certainly wasn't to me. At least in the beginning, when I felt like it could be. Once things were reciprocated, I felt like, oh, I'm not a creep. Like, this person cares about me too. Like, I definitely wasn't wrong about the friendship, but like, now that there's like these feelings and it's not just me, I don't know, it just made me feel less crazy. But maybe that was the wrong way to feel about it. Like, it's nice to feel reciprocated, but maybe it's wrong to feel justified in how you feel. And I think that that was my mistake. You know, it's not like she was inviting me out to these events that she sometimes goes to. And the only information that I had really was, oh, she said she'd come out to one of mine. So obviously, after 12 years and the type of relationship that we had, you know, I wanted to explain myself. Like, I wasn't, you know, like why I was there, you know, how I even like considered maybe not going, because I wasn't too sure if she'd be comfortable with me around, but at the same time, like, I wasn't too sure if she was there, and, you know, whatever, I don't know. Like, I just wanted to say something, because she'd never spoke to me this way before, or, you know, like, viewed me, like openly viewed me this way before. So like, it was entirely new. So I had to like, okay, well, maybe we're just misunderstanding each other. But when I tried to explain myself, she left me on red for like 10 days. And, you know, like, I felt like really terrible about myself, and, you know, just really just feeling like a nice guy, like someone that really screwed up. And because I make videos like this, I have spoken about this situation from different angles before. Like, you could definitely check out some of my videos on like twin flame connections and stuff like that there's a lot of that there. But yeah, I made a video about like the grieving process and like not like friendships, relationships, all kinds of different relationships coming to an end, and how like we need to like honor our pain and stuff like that. And she saw a clip of that on my story. So even though we had this conversation and she didn't want to talk to me anymore and stuff like that, like she didn't unfollow me and she was still looking at my story. So I was just like confused, but like at the same time, I could not get over the words that she said and how things were left off. And so that was that for me. So, but in this video, because like I was talking about like self-worth and stuff like that, because that's where a lot of this comes from too. Like we'll get really attached to a person or a connection with someone because maybe we met them when we're at a low point in our lives, or maybe we see the best of ourselves in them, and because everyone has that light in them, and we're all mirrors to each other. The brightest people that we see are just the best mirrors for people, right? And so this person just happened to be the best mirror for my own inner light. And so it was really easy for me to hold on to that light, I guess. And even though she said the same thing about me, like I'll speak for myself. She saw a clip of that video and I was crying in it. And that inspired her to respond to my message, open it up and respond. And this is how I knew it was absolutely whatever we had was over, because she responded basically like, oh, it's wrong of me to like leave you on red. I should at least like hear you out and stuff like that. And then proceeded to tell me, instead of, instead of engaging with anything that I said or, whatever, it was just essentially, don't view me as the bad guy. Like, and talking to my therapist about it, he definitely helped me view things in a different way, because I was definitely being really hard on myself. And when you take into consideration the entire journey, like reciprocated or not, like I should feel bad or guilty to some degree, at the very least, for helping her emotionally cheat on her partner, because I was still initiating a lot of those messages. So I'm culpable in that, and part of me taking responsibility is like understanding the weight of that and being like not okay with that. But he helped me view things differently. With all that in mind, he wanted me to understand how she was framing this response. That not only did she not want to hear me out, but still view my story, but not open the message. But then see my posts on my story of me like crying in a video or whatever, and then feeling inspired to respond to my message with, I'm not the bad guy. That she was making it more about how she felt instead of engaging with whatever I was saying. And I like, the whole time that I'm talking about this, it's hard for me to not consider how she was feeling. And in hindsight, I was only ever really concerned about that because I never really viewed myself as being worth any more than what I was being given. And that's where all the self-worth stuff comes in. I really thought that, yeah, this is a special connection with someone, but like, it is that all I'm worth? Like, am I just worth being someone's backup or being someone's like secret, like I have feelings for you too, but we can't talk? Like, that's all I viewed myself as. That's all I thought I was worth. And that was just a big slap in the face, was not just how things ended, but realizing how I truly felt about myself, which is, I think, another point for the nice guys jar. If we're grading whether or not like I'm a nice guy or I was a nice guy, was a lot of nice guys don't have a lot of self-esteem, and even the ones that are super confident, that are like, you know, like degrading women and stuff like that, that's all from a sense of inferiority and feeling like you need to like assert your superiority or your masculinity because you don't feel good enough. And a lot of people that don't do good with rejection immediately lean in that direction. And maybe that this was my own version of that. But my response to what she had to say was just essentially, you know, in spite of everything that we've said to each other, in spite of how we might have felt over the years, you know, I only really ever wanted to be a friend, and, you know, respecting her space and stuff like that. And that I feel terrible that with this most recent thing that I have disrespected her space, and that we just both deserve better. So yeah, I think that I'll let you guys be the judge, because I feel like I've ranted enough about this whole story. It's a long story, and my cat is calling me, so I really need to go take care of her. She's been home all day. But I'll let you guys be the judge. Do you feel like, with that whole story, like, would you consider me a nice guy? Because I think I'm already kind of leaning in that camp. It's initially what inspired me to make this video anyway, was like, was I a nice guy, really? Like, a lot of this is kind of feeling like icky, familiar territory, and I might have not leaned into certain extremes, but it feels related. So yeah, I'd like to hear from all of you, and I hope you have a good day.